So, Mr. Man? Call me Spider-Man. Right. Look, I've looked over your resume and it seems questionable. What do you mean? Well, right here it says you can spin a web any size. Sure can. You catch thieves just like flies. You know it. And you arrive just in time. You bet. Look, I think you may be in the wrong field. What are you talking about? Are you even aware of what building you just webbed your way into? You know, we've spent years together. You've always been there for me, and even after other people have said that I'm crazy for picking you, I've never doubted that you're the one for me. Will you marry me? Ahem. Please don't tell me you're proposing to a movie. Not just a movie, the movie. Your best movie? Really? You think this is better than No Way Home? Yes. Better than Into the Spider-Verse? Yes. Across the Spider-Verse? Yes. Morbius? Are you just gonna keep on naming your movies? Superman? What? That's not one of your movies. That's not even Marvel. Well, as it turns out, I was an uncredited producer. Uncredited producer? Yeah, James Gunn wanted my input because, after all, Superman is a fictional superhero and he wanted a real superhero as a consultant. Of course, I remained uncredited because if word got out that Marvel helped DC in any way, well, let's just say that the mouse won't be too happy about that. Huh, well, I guess that makes sense. So, were you gonna review this movie or fuck it? Wouldn't you like to know? Yeah, that's why I asked. What are you, waiting till marriage? I'm writing that one down. Ignore that web dickhead, Spider-Man 2. He just doesn't understand us. No one does. But I'll make them all understand. Spider-Man 2 is incredible, damn it.
What do you mean incredible?
What is the best Spider-Man movie? If you were to ask this question 10 years ago, the answer for most people would be Spider-Man 2. I mean, it really wasn't hard. Compared to the other Spider-Man movies at the time, it was a clear standout. But nowadays, that question is a little harder to answer. We have movies like Spider-Man No Way Home, Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, and I'm sure some people would come up with another answer. The point is, nowadays, it seems like everyone has a different answer. Well, what if I told you that even after seeing all these movies, Spider-Man 2 has remained my favorite? But before we get into that, let's talk a bit about the road to this movie. Of course, there's only a 2-year gap between movies, so the production is not nearly as complicated as the first movie. Spider-Man was a huge success, becoming the first film to make $100 million in a single weekend. In total, the film grossed over $800 million, becoming the highest-grossing superhero film at the time, and remained that way until 2007 when, ironically, Spider-Man 3 surpassed it. It was also the 6th highest grossing movie in general at the time, so there was no doubt in anyone's mind about a sequel. However, before Spider-Man 2, there was a continuation of the first movie in the form of Spider-Man: The New Animated Series. This was a series that aired on MTV in 2003 for 13 episodes before being cancelled. It was originally meant to serve as a continuation of the movie, but Spider-Man 2 rendered it as a separate continuity. Of course, there was going to be a movie to continue the continuity, with Sam Raimi returning to direct, and Alfred Goh and Miles Miller, who were hired to write a script. It was originally supposed to be called The Amazing Spider-Man, but later changed to Spider-Man 2 as that just makes more sense. David Koepp, who wrote the final version of the first film, was brought on to co-write. Koepp wanted to include Gwen Stacy in this film and kill her halfway through. Wow, how incredibly pointless that would have been. I mean, why would you introduce Gwen Stacy into the second movie only to kill her off halfway into it? How would that have worked anyway? Would Peter be dating her? Because if that's the case, then someone clearly didn't watch the ending of the first film. Anyway, hired next was Michael Caban. His idea was to have a younger version of Doc Ock who's infatuated with Mary Jane. His mechanical limbs use endorphins to counteract his pain. During a date with Mary Jane, Otto injures two muggers, scaring her. During a fight with Spider-Man, his limbs become fused together, slowly killing him. He also wrote that Otto was the creator of the spider that bit Peter and would give Peter an antidote to remove his powers. Otto would attempt to remove Spider-Man's spine to save himself and get help from Harry to reach Spider-Man. The latter detail, of course, made it into the final film. Yeah, this wasn't exactly the greatest idea ever. However, Raimi looked over all the drafts with Alvin Sargent to pick the parts that he liked. Raimi felt that the movie should focus on Peter's responsibility conflicting with his personal desires, and also change Doc Ock's backstory, giving him a wife and having him be a scientist who Peter looks up to. So what have we learned here, folks? Well, you always listen to Sam Raimi, because he's pretty much been able to save each movie from becoming a disaster. Unfortunately, they didn't learn this for the third film, but we'll get to that. The rest of the production is pretty straightforward, although one of the most interesting details involves the casting. Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Rosemary Harris, and J.K. Simmons were all set to return for the sequel. However, Tobey Maguire was not. Maguire dealt with severe back pains while filming Seabiscuit a year prior, and as a result, almost didn't return. In fact, this was very close to happening, as they had Jake Gyllenhaal ready to take his place, given that the actors do look alike. However, obviously this didn't end up happening, and Maguire was thankfully able to reprise his role after doing some screen tests. Jake Gyllenhaal would eventually go on to play Quentin Beck / Mysterio in Spider-Man Far From Home. Tobey Maguire's back injuries are actually where the line my back" comes from when Peter tries to regain his powers. So after all that, Spider-Man 2 released on June 30th, 2004. I was 1 year old when it came out, so once again my experience is non-existent, but I can tell you, watching it as a kid, Spider-Man 2 was actually my least favorite of the trilogy.
You serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. I thought it was kinda boring compared to 1 and 3. But come on, this was little baby Arron. He didn't know a cha-cha from a waltz. Clearly I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, and my thoughts have changed. So sit back as I explain why this movie, amongst the current crop of Spider-Man, still reigns supreme. This is Spider-Man 2. The movie starts with the opening credits, which not only brings back Danny Elfman's incredible score, but they also recap the first movie using illustrations made by famous comic book artist Alex Ross. I mean, holy shit, the movie hasn't even started yet, and I'm already in awe at just how much effort was put into the fucking opening credits. The movie then transitions into a shot of a billboard with Mary Jane's face on it, as we get another narration from Peter Parker telling us about Mary Jane and how she can never be a part of his life. There's also a brilliant callback to the "Who am I" line that I praised with the first film, but this time the answer is slightly different.
Who am I? I'm Spider-Man, given a job to do. And I'm Peter Parker. And I too have a job.
Right off the bat, the movie emphasizes that Peter isn't just Spider-Man. He's also a normal guy just like everyone else. We see Peter is late to his job at Joe's Pizza and uses a motorcycle. The motorcycle is in reference to the fact that in the early 60s comics, Peter did in fact have a motorcycle for a short time, so you can tell that the filmmakers did their research. Since Spider-Man stopping crime made Peter Parker late to his pizza delivery job, his boss gives him an ultimatum.
You have to go 42 blocks in 7.5 minutes, or your ass is fired. Go!
So Peter hops on his motorcycle, but he finds that this isn't getting the job done fast enough, so he says fuck it and dons his arachnid costume. Now the costume has been slightly updated from the last movie. The web pattern is more even now, the lenses are slightly smaller, and the most notable difference is the chest symbol is a little bigger and has a sharper design. The web pattern and lenses don't matter much to me, but I do prefer the look of the new chest symbol. Peter is interrupted by two children attempting to cross the street at a bad time, but after saving them and the pizza from being eaten, he finally makes it.
Pizza time.
No, wait, Peter, don't! Oh, God! Not that annoying jingle from the video game, which, by the way, I did review. But it turns out Peter is in fact late, and as a result, not only is he not paid for the pizzas, his ass is fired. The scene of Peter being fired then transitions into a scene of Peter being fired. Peter tries giving Jameson non-Spidey related photos because he's tired of Jameson always painting him as a menace. But he's basically forced to sell Spider-Man photos in order to make money. But even after that, he's still struggling to make money. The first 20 or so minutes shows us all the ways that Spider-Man is fucking up Peter's life. Peter is struggling to hold down a job, isn't making enough money to pay rent in his apartment he now lives in, learns that Aunt May is behind on bills and struggles without Uncle Ben. He's always late to Dr. Connor's class and is in danger of failing if he doesn't get his paper on fusion done on time. His best friend Harry still blames Spider-Man for the death of his father, and the icing on top of the shit cake is that Mary Jane reveals that she's now seeing someone. And if all that wasn't depressing enough for you, everything that I just mentioned occurs on Peter's birthday, which he completely forgets about, by the way.
Surprise! Well, say something.
What's the occasion?
Oh, really, Peter? It's your birthday.
Now, something about this movie that I feel doesn't get enough credit is the fact that Peter, Mary Jane, and Harry do look aged up from the first film. One of the criticisms regarding the first movie that I do agree with is that a lot of the actors look a bit too old to be in high school. But since Peter is college-aged in this movie, I feel like they did a good job this time around. The three of them genuinely do look a bit older despite the fact that it's only a 2-year gap, so I give them credit. After the party, Peter learns about Aunt May being behind on her bills, and is then forced to accept a $20 bill from her as a birthday gift. I love the acting from both Harris and Maguire in this scene. Aunt May tearing up talking about Uncle Ben, and Peter's reaction having to take money from her is perfect. He doesn't have to say anything, but you can tell from the look on his face that he feels responsible for the situation Aunt May finds herself in, but of course he can't tell her anything about it. We then get a scene similar to the first movie of Peter taking the Eddie Brock out before talking to Mary Jane. Peter mentions her billboard and promises to see her play as he's the only one who hasn't seen it yet. I wonder why that is. And it's here that Mary Jane reveals that she's seeing someone. Specifically John Jameson, J. Jonah Jameson's astronaut son. Well, now it's time for the part where I once again defend Mary Jane. Most of the hate for Mary Jane's character seems to come from this movie in particular. They say that Mary Jane is unlikable because she's fucking with Peter's emotions, only to reveal that she has a boyfriend. Mary Jane is also upset and goes off on Peter after he misses her play. Alright, I have 2 points to counter these arguments. First of all, Mary Jane fucking with Peter's feelings and getting upset that he missed her play, as well as her dating John, is meant to reinforce the whole point of the movie's story. Of course, we know being with Mary Jane is Peter's ultimate desire, but his responsibilities as Spider-Man put a lock between them. And second, have you people even watched the ending to the first film? You know, where Peter rejects Mary Jane? That is a very important factor to consider, folks. Mary Jane confesses her love for Peter, but after he rejects her, she moves on with her life. What do you expect her to do, wait around for Peter to make another move? This movie takes place 2 years after the first film. Mary Jane is absolutely justified when she starts dating someone else. And now I want to go back to the scene of them talking the night of Peter's birthday. I don't feel as if she's purposely fucking with Peter's feelings. To me, it more so feels as if this is her last-ditch effort to be with Peter, but of course Peter is too devoted to his responsibilities, so Mary Jane pretty much gives up saying, "You're such a mystery," which is a line that I love, and then she reveals she's seeing someone. And again, people act as if she doesn't care about Peter's feelings, but you can tell that Mary Jane isn't sure of how she feels about John. She's unsure about her choice, kinda similar to when Peter gives up being Spider-Man, but we'll get to that later. There's actually multiple scenes with Mary Jane and John Jameson where you can tell that Mary Jane isn't 100% about how she feels about John and that she's still thinking of Peter. So yeah, I don't understand why so many people are against her in this movie and think of her as the enemy. Mary Jane is not Peter's enemy. Spider-Man is Peter's enemy. Now, I know I've spent a lot of time on this scene, but there's one more thing I want to mention. I feel as if this scene also serves as a nice parallel to the scene in the first film. The scene in the first film has Peter talking to Mary Jane, as we can tell he wants to be with her, but she's in a relationship with Flash Thompson. In the second movie, it's the opposite. Mary Jane wants to be with Peter, but essentially, he's in a relationship with Spider-Man. Also, both scenes end with both of them being disappointed by Mary Jane's boyfriend. So, yeah, in case it's not obvious enough, I love this scene. Peter then goes home to his shitty apartment, and we're introduced to his landlord, Mr. Dickovich, and his daughter, Ursula. Ursula is an original character not in the comics, and while Peter has had landlords in the comics, the one in the Raimi films is named after Spider-Man's co-creator, Steve Ditko. Because Peter is unable to pay rent, Mr. Dickovich takes Peter's $20 bill. Peter then sits on his bed in his tiny-ass apartment and reflects on just how shitty his life is. And the award for most depressing superhero film goes to... Okay, in all seriousness, I know I'm making this out to be a pretty depressing movie where the main character gets shit on in every scene, and you might think it's hard to watch, but make no mistake, Spider-Man 2 is a blast to watch. Yes, the film does have sad moments and seems to pound Peter into the ground, but it's also got triumphant moments and does have a lot of humorous moments. And for a movie that consistently shits on its main character, injecting humor into it is such a great thing to do. And the humor is also really good. It's not annoying, it's not childish, it doesn't intrude on serious moments. Basically what I'm trying to say is, it's not the MCU. The humor is mature, and the reason it works so well in this movie is because it actually makes the scene better. It flows well in the scene, and it helps keep the audience's spirits high instead of just feeling bad for Peter the whole time. So Peter is planning on writing his fusion paper on Otto Octavius, and since Harry has connections at Oscorp and is funding his experiments, Peter is able to meet Otto. Otto is played by Alfred Molina. Now in the first movie, I praised Willem Dafoe's performance as Green Goblin for being accurate to the character despite some goofy moments. With Molina, it's a bit different. While I do think he does a good job bringing the character to life, the reason why I like his portrayal is because it's not exactly like the comics. Now, of course, I like Dr. Octopus in the comics, but he's more or less just a really smart supervillain that was pretty much a bad guy from the start. One of the things Spider-Man 2 does is that it makes Otto more sympathetic. Raimi deciding to make Otto Peter's mentor, as well as give him a wife, I feel was a very smart thing to do. By doing this, Raimi essentially made Otto more realistic and makes for a more tragic origin. Quite honestly, Otto's portrayal in this movie is the answer to my criticisms of Green Goblin in the first movie. Yes, they did a good job making Green Goblin accurate, but it was sometimes to a fault, making for some goofy moments. While Otto still remains a super smart villain with 4 mechanical tentacles like his comic book counterpart, they managed to still make him fairly realistic and less of a goofy over-the-top comic book villain. While I do prefer Norman Osborn as a villain in general, I think they did a better job translating Doc Ock to the big screen. There's a great scene of Otto and his wife Rosie talking to Peter about love, with Otto telling Peter not to keep something as complicated as love stored up inside, of course referring to Peter's dilemma. We then get one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, where Peter is getting ready to go see Mary Jane's play as the song Hold On by Jet is playing. Great choice for this scene, the lyrics perfectly capture Peter Parker in this movie. The name of Mary Jane's play is The Importance of Being Earnest. The definition of earnest is to show sincere and intense conviction, which pretty accurately describes Peter Parker. On his way to the play, Peter is forced to flip over a couple of carjackers, and then proceeds to go after them as Spider-Man. I always get goosebumps seeing Spider-Man swing through the truck as the score goes up to an 11. It's fucking awesome. After nabbing them, Peter actually uses their car to get to the play. My god, Peter, you're proving everything Jameson has been saying about you. I mean, driving without a license? But when Peter arrives, he finds out from the usher, played by Bruce Campbell, making his second cameo in the trilogy, that he actually arrived late and isn't allowed inside.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. No one will be seated after the doors are closed.
It helps maintain the illusion.
It's funny because he's Mysterio. Peter is forced to wait outside, but when Mary Jane comes out, John is there to meet her. Peter, frustrated, turns to Spider-Man and swings off. Or not. Suddenly, Peter's powers decide not to work, and he crash lands on a building and can't get down, so Spider-Man is forced to take the elevator, which leads to an amusing scene.
Cool Spidey outfit.
Thanks.
Looks uncomfortable.
It gets kind of itchy. It rides up in the crotch a little bit, too.
Hey, this Spider-Man is lucky that's the only crotch issue he has to deal with. Whatever you do, don't read this comic. After the elevator scene, there's a shot of Peter dragging his crumpled bike as he walks past a building covered in pictures of Mary Jane. I absolutely love this shot, and I never hear anyone talk about it. It's almost as if the pictures of Mary Jane are taunting him as he walks by. A brilliant detail. Peter attempts to call Mary Jane the next day, but struggles to explain why he missed her play. Peter then meets Harry to see Otto's demonstration of his fusion reactor. Otto shows off his 4 mechanical tentacles and the inhibitor chip that prevents the AI in the arms from taking over. The fusion reaction is successful, and we get the iconic line, "The power of the sun in the palm of my hand." When it comes to lines from the Raimi trilogy that became memes, I certainly like this line over Norman's "I'm something of a scientist myself." The fusion reaction ends up being too successful as it starts pulling in all metal objects, leading to Otto's wife Rosie being killed by shards of glass. Otto's inhibitor chip also becomes damaged, and he gets electrocuted before Peter as Spider-Man is able to shut it down. We then get the controversial hospital scene, where doctors attempt to cut off Otto's arms before they all get killed in a horrific way only a horror director could love. Yeah, I have no issue with this scene. I think it's fucking cool, and you have to remember that Sam Raimi is a horror director, and while I suppose it could be scary for some younger kids, it doesn't actually show any blood or guts flying around, unlike another PG-13 Marvel movie that actually did show bloody deaths. What movie was that again? Oh yeah, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which coincidentally is also directed by Sam Raimi. That movie showed someone getting impaled by a shield, and someone accidentally popping their own head. So if that's considered okay, Spider-Man 2 is certainly okay. We then get one of, if not the greatest Daily Bugle scene of the whole trilogy. First, we get a hint that maybe Spider-Man is not the only Ditko creation that exists in this universe, and then Jameson needs Peter to fill in for a photographer at the planetarium, which is honoring his son John. Peter then asks if he could get paid in advance, which is followed by the greatest laugh I've ever heard from someone.
Could you pay me in advance?
You serious? Pay you for what, standing there?
J.K. Simmons has the perfect response, and it's no wonder his reaction has become a meme. I never get tired of watching this clip. It's fucking hilarious and is the perfect reaction to pretty much everything. You might remember that I used this clip in the last review as well as earlier in this review. Well, get ready for me to use that clip more in the future, especially in these reviews. J.K. Simmons is as great as he always is as Jameson, but I think some of his funniest scenes come from this movie in particular.
Boss, your wife's on the line. She said she lost a checkbook.
Thanks for the good news.
5 minutes to deadline, Jonah.
All right, run a picture of a rancid chicken. Here's a headline. Food poisoning scare, Sweep City.
Some food got poisoned?
I'm a little nauseous, yeah.
God, I love his response to anything. Next, we see Otto's reaction to what happened to him as the AI in the arms start talking in his head. They convince him to rebuild the machine, but he needs money, so he decides to rob a bank. Unfortunately, Peter and his aunt also happen to be at the bank trying to get a loan when this happens. Peter runs off to change to Spider-Man, and we get our first real fight between him and Doc Ock, and it's really good. There's 2 things that I think they improved with this movie, and that is the action and the special effects. Now, the action in the first film certainly wasn't bad, but the special effects were some of my biggest problems. Well, I'm happy to say that not only does the CG look a lot better, the action is spectacular. Doc Ock's arms are also practical. They were each controlled by puppeteers, which helps make it more convincing. The scenes of Spider-Man swinging around look more convincing too. Now sure, some of the wide shots like when Peter's on the train or when Mary Jane is being carried away by Doc Ock, you can definitely tell that's not Tobey Maguire or Kirsten Dunst, but these are such small moments that it doesn't even matter to me. In fact, Spider-Man 2 would go on to win an Oscar for Best Visual Effects. It was the first Marvel movie to win an Oscar and remained the only Marvel film to win an Oscar for 10 years until 2014 when Big Hero 6 won Best Animated Feature. Spider-Man 2's effects were definitely amazing for the time, but even now I think it still looks good in most areas and is a huge step up from the first movie. In order to evade capture, Otto kidnaps Aunt May, but Spider-Man manages to save her after Aunt May fights back. We then get one of the best scenes in the movie. Okay, to be fair, I think it's clear at this point that every scene in this movie is the best, but the scene at the planetarium has to be in my top 3 at least. This is the ultimate shit on Peter Parker. First, there's a brilliant running gag throughout the scene where Peter keeps on trying to grab food and drinks from the tray, but someone else always grabs it before he can, and when he finally does manage to grab a drink, it's empty. If that's not the perfect metaphor for this story, I don't know what is. Peter finds Harry drinking at the bar, showcasing his anger towards Spider-Man. After taking some photos, Jonah Jameson is then introduced with Mary Jane by his side. Peter goes to talk to Mary Jane, apologizing for missing the play, but Mary Jane is upset because everyone else has been able to see her play except Peter. Again, I really don't understand why people seem to have such a problem with Mary Jane in this scene. Yeah, we as the audience know why Peter can't make it to her play, but Mary Jane doesn't know he's Spider-Man. She's absolutely justified to be frustrated with Peter's behavior.
After all these years, he's nothing to me but an empty seat.
That empty seat line is a highlight, by the way. We then see a drunken Harry going off on Peter again for his loyalty to Spider-Man, and he starts slapping Peter in front of everyone. James Franco does a great job, and I love the evolution of his character from the first movie where he's quiet and reserved, to this movie where he lashes out and has a more emotional performance. Now, you'd think this would be it for Peter. I mean, how could it possibly get any worse for him?
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you all to know that the beautiful Miss Mary Jane Watson has just agreed to marry me.
Ooh, that's gotta hurt. But hey, Peter, look at the bright side. John will also be an empty seat for Mary Jane. If you get my meaning, I mean, I'm sorry, that's not funny. Poor guy's having the worst day. To make matters worse, Peter is then forced to take a picture of them together. The flash of the picture then transitions to this absolutely beautiful wide shot of Spider-Man swinging against the night skyline, as if to say that Peter is truly alone as Spider-Man. The music here is also a highlight. However, it's here that Peter's powers decide to fail him once again.
Oh no.
In a similar way to the first film, Peter attempts to slowly climb a wall but loses his grip. He then sees a Daily Bugle headline that blames both Doc Ock and Spider-Man for robbing the bank. As Otto starts rebuilding his fusion reactor, Peter sees a doctor in hopes of finding out why he's losing his powers. He explains what the issue is without revealing too much, and the doctor tells him that he does have a choice and that maybe he's not meant to be Spider-Man. This leads into one of the most emotional scenes in the movie, where Peter has a dreamlike vision where he's back in the car with Uncle Ben, but he rejects Uncle Ben's words because he can't take it anymore.
Take my hand, son.
No, Uncle Ben. I'm just Peter Parker. I'm Spider-Man. No more.
This whole sequence is absolutely incredible. Maguire deserves a lot of credit for his performance in this movie. I think he does a great job at showing emotion without even having to say anything. You can tell he's frustrated, you can tell he feels guilty, you know exactly what he's feeling in every scene. I think he gives his best performance as Peter Parker in this movie. Peter puts his costume in the garbage and walks away as a nice homage to the issue in the comics the story is based on. The whole idea of Peter quitting being Spider-Man comes from the Amazing Spider-Man issue 50 entitled Spider-Man No More. In this issue, Peter gives up being Spider-Man because of everything Jameson says about him and the way Spider-Man intrudes on his relationships. Although I have to give credit to Stan Lee for writing the Spider-Man No More story, respectfully, I think the movie actually improved upon it, having the story feel more earned and emotional. So now that Spider-Man is no longer a part of Peter's life, his life seems to be steadily improving. He has more time for his classes and his grades start going up. He even finally makes it to see Mary Jane's play. He tries to convince her to reconsider and that he's different now, but Mary Jane isn't willing to give him a chance. Someone finds Spider-Man's costume in the garbage and gives it to the Daily Bugle, which of course makes Jameson very happy. Peter goes with Aunt May to visit Uncle Ben's grave, and afterwards Peter decides to tell Aunt May that he's responsible for Uncle Ben's death in an attempt to take some of the guilt away from her. Aunt May takes it pretty hard at first. Meanwhile, Otto is needing more tritium to power up his fusion reactor, so he makes a deal with Harry to bring Spider-Man in exchange for more tritium. We then get a scene of another burning building, although unlike the first movie, Peter doesn't have his powers, but despite this, he lends a hand anyway, saving a little girl and bringing her back to her parents. However, he learns that someone else wasn't able to make it out, causing Peter to reflect on whether he made the right decision to give up being Spider-Man. This is when Ursula offers Peter some chocolate cake and a glass of milk, which is actually a really nice scene to add. They could have cut this scene out, but it shows something that has been lacking the whole movie. For once, Peter isn't getting shit on, and you can tell from his response how much he genuinely appreciates her kindness.
Would you like a piece of chocolate cake?
That would be nice.
Aunt May then invites Peter over, telling him that she's moving into an apartment, and that she forgives him for telling the truth about Uncle Ben's death. He also learns something else.
Hey, where are all my comic books?
Oh, those dreadful things. I gave those away.
Oh, come on, now he loses his comic books? That's the worst thing to happen yet. However, Aunt May is able to encourage Peter to be Spider-Man again, and that the world needs heroes like Spider-Man. Sometimes, to do what's right, we have to give up the thing we want the most. There's actually a fan theory that at this point, Aunt May knows Peter is Spider-Man. It's a fun theory, but I think this scene works very well either way. So Peter attempts to be Spider-Man again and tries jumping off a building. Whoa, Peter, come on. I mean, why don't you try jumping off something lower? Oh, man. Well, don't say I didn't warn you. Oh, jeez. See, now we have to replace you with that guy who revealed your identity in another universe. Mary Jane and John are preparing for their wedding when John brings up the subject of Peter. Mary Jane says she doesn't want to invite him, and then proceeds to replicate the upside-down Spider-Man kiss from the first movie. This causes her to have second thoughts, and she meets up with Peter attempting to tell him that she does still have feelings for him, and that her mind was playing tricks. However, because Peter is trying to be Spider-Man, he says that his mind was playing tricks too, and that he can't be there for her. However, Mary Jane is starting to catch on and doesn't believe him. She tells him to kiss her, but that gets interrupted when this shit happens. Man, don't you just hate when a car gets thrown at you? Now, many people have criticized this scene, questioning why Otto would chuck a car at Peter if he's trying to get information out of him. And sure, I'll admit it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I do have a defense for this scene. Keep in mind the whole reason Otto becomes a villain is because the inhibitor chip was damaged and the AI in the arms are telling him what to do. So wouldn't it be reasonable to assume that the intelligence in the arms takes things further than Otto would normally go? And plus, look, it's just a cool scene, alright? Otto kidnaps Mary Jane and wants Spider-Man to meet him at the West Side Tower. Peter is thrown against the wall but emerges enraged. He then realizes that he now sees better without his glasses, confirming that he indeed has his powers back. I love the detail of his lens breaking when he drops his glasses. He's no longer just Peter Parker anymore. We go back to the Daily Bugle where Jameson actually takes some responsibility for driving Spider-Man away. But of course this only lasts a few seconds when Peter suddenly takes his costume back, leading to one of the greatest transitions ever put to screen.
I want Spider-Man!
Holy shit! That was fucking awesome! Man, this movie! How could it possibly get any better? Well, folks, you all know what happens next. Oh yes, we get the best Spider-Man action scene ever put to screen. It's absolutely insane. The way Spider-Man dodges the tentacles and all the different parts of the subway, the way he flips around when he gets thrown inside, when Doc Ock chucks some passengers overboard and Spider-Man throws them back into some web nets, it's all breathtaking. But then Doc Ock cranks the train's speed up to max, which causes it to become uncontrollable. Peter goes to see what he can do to help, but then some sparks force him to take his mask off in front of all the passengers, and he realizes that he needs to stop this train fast as it's coming to a dead end. Peter tries to stop it, but nothing seems to be working until he spins as many webs as he can and relies on sheer strength to force the train to stop. They do such a great job making this scene as intense as possible, even having his costume start to tear. Again, Maguire especially deserves credit for putting his all into this scene. Peter manages to stop the train, but this proves to be too much and he passes out. However, the passengers end up saving him, realizing that Spider-Man is just a kid. They find his mask and promise to not tell anyone, making Peter realize that maybe being Spider-Man isn't all bad. Everything from Spider-Man bursting through the newspaper all the way to stopping the train is one of the most thrilling sequences I've ever seen from a superhero movie, and might be a contender for the greatest moment in the history of the character. Doc Ock shows back up, and unfortunately, Peter doesn't have enough energy to fight back, so Otto is able to tie him up and take him to Harry where he gets his precious tritium. And of course, this is the moment Harry has been waiting for. He decides to unmask Spider-Man, revealing his best friend, to which James Franco gives a great reaction. He starts off being shocked and in denial, and then goes into a realization of Peter being responsible for his father's death. Peter doesn't have time to deal with this and goes to stop Otto from making the fusion reaction as well as save Mary Jane. The fusion reaction is so powerful that all of New York is now at risk, but Otto isn't going down without a fight. Peter is finally able to beat Otto and unmasks himself, begging Otto to stop everything. But because a successful fusion reaction was Otto's dream and his life's work, he can't bring himself to shut it down. This is when Peter tells him what he was forced to learn throughout the movie. Sometimes to do what's right, we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams. When Otto suggests drowning the machine in the river, Peter initially goes, but he's stopped and Otto ends up sacrificing himself, proclaiming that he will not die a monster. I love what they did with Otto's redemption and sacrifice. It's very meaningful. Because Peter took his mask off, Mary Jane is finally able to understand everything. As the entire place is falling apart, Mary Jane is suddenly in danger of being crushed, prompting Peter to have this reaction. Okay, I get it. Lots of people like to make fun of Tobey Maguire's scream here, because it's not the typical scream you expect, but I do want to defend it in the regard that it's meant to be a scream of absolute frustration. I mean, think about it from Peter's perspective. All the shit he's had to deal with in this movie, and just when things seem like they're gonna be okay, he sees the love of his life about to get crushed to death. So I understand what they were trying to do with this kind of reaction. Peter is able to hold the thing up and finally admits to Mary Jane that he does in fact love her. He's able to save her, and they have a moment together where Peter once again tells her that they can't be together because he'll always be Spider-Man. They go their separate ways, but Mary Jane is left heartbroken. We then go back to Harry sitting alone thinking about what he just discovered, when suddenly we hear a very familiar laugh.
Who's that?
Son. I'm here.
Norman tries to convince Harry to fight Peter in order to avenge him, but Harry doesn't want any part of it and breaks the mirror, leading to the discovery of his father's goblin lair. Wow, this tease for the next movie is brilliant. How could they possibly mess this up? Hey, hold on, we're not there yet. The day of Mary Jane's wedding comes, but she doesn't look too happy. Also, something I didn't actually notice until my recent rewatch is that Harry's bow tie is green. That's an awesome detail. Yet another reason for me to love this movie. However, Mary Jane says fuck it, deciding not to go through with the wedding. I love the Dutch shot of Mary Jane running in her dress with a big smile on her face as the wedding music continues to play. We then see Peter sitting alone in his shitty apartment when Mary Jane arrives, telling Peter that she can't survive without him and that she wants to face the risks with him. We then get one of my favorite lines in the movie.
So here I am, standing in your doorway. I've always been standing in your doorway.
They get interrupted by the sounds of sirens, and we get the final swing before the movie ends on a shot of Mary Jane, who has a look of almost emptiness, realizing that she's alone now. So that was Spider-Man 2, and it was pretty good, I suppose.
You serious?
Nah, I'm just kidding. This movie's a fucking masterpiece. Words cannot even begin to describe the love I have for this movie. Not only is this the best Spider-Man movie, I think this is the best superhero movie ever made. The story is more meaningful than any other superhero movie. I love the evolution of each of the main characters. Doc Ock is a great villain, and his character fixes all of my problems with Green Goblin in the previous movie. The performances are outstanding, the writing is brilliant, the effects have improved, the action scenes are stellar, and it has the best Spider-Man scene ever put to film, as well as one of my favorite Spider-Man scenes from any piece of media. Danny Elfman's score is just as good as it was with the first movie. It perfectly balances humor with serious moments. It's shot really well. Even small things like the opening credits and the transitions between scenes are so fun to watch. There's not anything that jumps out to me as being a problem. I don't look at a single part of it and think, well, they could have done a better job here, or this could have been cut. No. Every single scene serves the story and does nothing but make the movie better. This movie has every emotion you could possibly need. Spider-Man 2 is a beautiful film. This movie actually motivates me when I watch it. Whenever I watch it, it honestly feels like I'm watching it for the first time because I fall in love with it all over again. It's not just a good Spider-Man movie. It's so much more than that. I really feel that this movie needs to be looked at in the same regard as movies like Godfather, Forrest Gump, The Shawshank Redemption, Empire Strikes Back. In fact, I would argue Spider-Man 2 is the Empire Strikes Back of Spider-Man movies because it's better and takes a darker approach than its predecessor. If there is only one thing I've reviewed in my entire history on YouTube that I can call perfect, it would be Spider-Man 2. Now, since me giving this a perfect score is the most obvious thing in the world, instead, I'm going to do something surprising. I'm going to give Spider-Man 2 a 12 out of 10. For fuck's sake, I proposed to this movie. If that doesn't show how much I love it, what does? Now, as it turns out, this review is not over yet because I still have about 8 minutes of footage to talk about. I'm of course talking about Spider-Man 2.1. As a way of promoting Spider-Man 3, in April 2007, an extended cut of Spider-Man 2 was released, which dubs the movie as Spider-Man 2.1, and it features 8 minutes of extra footage. It also has alternate takes and different edits. I'm going to give my thoughts on the biggest differences between the two cuts. The Blu-ray I have actually includes both cuts of the film. Some of the differences are big, like I said, but some of them are also very minor. The first big difference is that Peter's conversation with Mr. Aziz is longer. There's a bit more comedy to it with Mr. Aziz arguing with his employees, but I don't really think it fits well. Also, the way Mr. Aziz says go is different in both cuts. You might think this is not a big deal, but
to me, it's serious.
The way he says go in the theatrical cut is funnier.
Go! Go!
The scene where Peter arrives with the pizza is way longer. While I do like the addition of Peter pulling a piece of web off the box, the rest of it goes on for a little bit too long. I understand they were trying to emphasize the awkward comedy, but I think the original scene is just timed better. Peter's birthday party is a little longer, and I actually do like it. You get further emphasis with Harry's hatred of Spider-Man, and also they sing happy birthday to Peter before the blowing of the candles fades to black into the next scene. I think all of this scene should have been kept in. Speaking of the next scene, there's a little bit more dialogue between Peter and Mary Jane. I'm torn with this change because, on the one hand, there's a great moment where Mary Jane asks Peter about his dreams, and Peter just says, "I'm fine." Really great, and I wish they kept it in. Although there's also a weird part when Mary Jane reveals she's seeing someone, and Peter initially assumes it's a therapist. Not really a fan of that. Peter meeting Otto for the first time is a little longer, and this is another addition I like. Otto's wife Rosie is introduced earlier in the scene, and there's further dialogue when Otto is talking about how he met Rosie, giving it more context, so another good change. After Peter stops the carjackers, you get a little bit of Peter driving the car and taking his mask off, which I think is one of the worst additions. It's unnecessary, and Peter taking his mask off doesn't make much sense. One of the biggest differences is the elevator scene, which is completely different. Instead of saying his suit looks uncomfortable, the guy is a huge fan of Spider-Man and starts suggesting other ventures Spider-Man can go into. Now, the comedy here is not necessarily bad, but the interaction in the theatrical cut is way better because the dialogue fits with the theme of Peter getting shit on. The extended cut having this guy be a big fan doesn't really work, and the scene in the extended cut also goes on for way too long. There's a new scene of Peter getting distracted in Dr. Connor's class as we see him drawing in his notebook about all the things he's thinking about. This scene happens right before Peter calls Mary Jane to explain why he missed her play, and I think it works really well. This leads me into another new scene of Mary Jane talking with one of her co-stars. Her co-star is questioning why she said yes to John's proposal so quickly, and basically trying to make sure that she's making the right decision. Now, I really like this scene. It helps us understand Mary Jane's decision more, and if it was included in the theatrical cut, maybe more people would start to see Mary Jane in a different light. The only problem with this scene is the way it's inserted into the extended cut. This scene is placed in between Doc Ock rebuilding his machine and Peter at the doctor's office. As a result, it kind of feels like a strange interruption, and it doesn't really flow well. Speaking of Peter at the doctor's office, that's another scene with extended dialogue. The doctor actually tells Peter about how he deals with his own problems, and I feel it improves the scene. The doctor also mentions strong focus, which gives further context when Peter says that very line, trying to gain his powers back. This addition is really great. Now, Uncle Ben does have a tiny bit more dialogue in the car scene, but I don't really think it works well. It's mainly the line where he says, "You know I understand," and I don't think that line works for this scene. The raindrops keep falling on my head scene is edited differently, having two mirror images of Peter, and I don't think this is needed. There's also extended fight scenes with Doc Ock, but the thing is, because this was deleted from the theatrical cut, it remains unfinished, and the CG doesn't really look great, so personally I could do without them. Also, this is a small thing I always notice, but they add a scream sound when Spider-Man is making his way back to the train, and I feel it's kind of unnecessary. And finally, the only other big difference is that we actually get a scene of Jameson pretending to be Spider-Man while wearing his costume. Now, to be fair, do we need this in the movie? Probably not, but I still like it because it's funny and come on, it's new footage of Jameson. Of course I'm gonna welcome this. So that's the extended cut, and it's actually kind of frustrating because I think it has its strengths and weaknesses, so it's hard for me to say if you should watch it over the theatrical cut. The extended cut does have stuff that I think makes the movie better, but at the same time it has some unnecessary additions, and I think the theatrical cut has a better flow to it, and it's usually the cut I end up watching. You know what this reminds me of? Superman 2. Not that it's the same situation, because Superman 2 had some behind-the-scenes problems, with the director Richard Donner being fired and replaced with Richard Lester. But what I mean is, Superman 2 also had two different cuts. The original Richard Lester cut, and years later, the Richard Donner cut. But based on what I've heard, some fans say that both cuts have their strengths and weaknesses, kinda like what I said with Spider-Man 2. But the thing with Superman 2 is that there was a fan who actually made his own edit that included the best of both cuts called the complete cut. So that got me thinking, what if someone did that for Spider-Man 2? And what if that someone was me? Well, right now, I'm going to propose an idea for a cut of Spider-Man 2 that includes the best of the theatrical cut and the extended cut. Now, because the extended cut is called Spider-Man 2.1, I'm calling my cut of the movie Spider-Man 2.05. Here's what I would cut out and what I would include. I would cut out the extended dialogue with Mr. Aziz, I would insert the theatrical cut of Pizza Time, but I would also include the little part of the web on the pizza box. I would include the extended part of Peter's birthday, as well as Peter saying I'm fine, but I would cut out the part with the therapy line. I would insert the extended dialogue of Peter meeting Otto, I would cut out the shot of Peter driving the car, I would insert the original elevator scene, I would include Peter drawing in his notebook, I would include Mary Jane talking with her co-star, but maybe I would insert it after the raindrops keep falling on my head scene. Speaking of which, I would insert the theatrical cut edit of that shot. I would include the extended dialogue with the doctor, but cut out the extended dialogue with Uncle Ben. I would cut out most of the extended fight scenes, with the possible exception of when they crash into that woman's apartment, because that's actually not bad. Of course, I would cut out the scream sound during the train fight, and finally, I would definitely include Jameson as Spidey. That's my dream cut of Spider-Man 2, so let's make it happen, people. Hashtag make Spider-Man 2.05. In all seriousness, neither of these cuts are bad. Yes, the theatrical cut has a better flow to it, but if you are stuck watching the extended cut, you still get the best Spider-Man movie, and you're not exactly losing much besides the elevator scene, so you can't go wrong either way. Hell, even the end credits are great because it plays some absolute bangers, including my favorite rendition of Spider-Man's theme song, courtesy of Michael Bublé. Yeah, talk about ending with a bang. That's gonna be played at our wedding, little buddy. And as for you guys, well, I'll see you next time when I review Spider-Man 3. And all I have to say about that is, it's certainly something else.
No. Please. Please don't say that.